What's good, all? Welcome back to the channel. Just getting quickly into it. I had a horrible, the worst card I've ever had in my entire life predicting. I went 4-8, and I lost the main event because Shawn got robbed. I don't care what y'all say. Shawn got robbed. But the one thing that saved me from absolutely hating that card, my favorite fighter of all time, Frankie Edgar, was inducted into the modern wing of the Hall of Fame for the UFC, which is just awesome. I couldn't believe that he hadn't already been inducted, but I guess it's because he didn't retire for so long in his career. I'm assuming that's why. So this is just fucking amazing. Like, he's had so many brilliant performances, comebacks, great finishes, wins against fighters that you wouldn't expect him to have wins over, like Yair Rodriguez when he was climbing up the rankings. Frankie Edgar shut him down. Chad Mendes when he was pretty much the biggest threat in the division aside from Jose Aldo, basically having like Dragon Ball Z level fights with Jose Aldo. Frankie Edgar comes in and smokes him, knocks him out clean. He had wars with Jose Aldo. He had obviously those wars with BJ Penn. Beat BJ Penn 3 times when BJ was the greatest fighter of all time. He's just had so many great fights. He was a top 5 in 3 divisions. Just crazy, man. He was fighting in a division he never should have fought in. I love him. It saved me from hating this card. But let's talk about the main event. Shawn Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis. This was a great fight. I knew it was going to be a war. I had a feeling it would be the fight of the night. To me, it's one of the few fights I predicted correctly that just got robbed on the scorecards. I thought Brad Katona also won his fight, but I guess we'll get to that later on in this video. Shawn won the first round, the second round, and the 5th round, in my opinion. And the 5th round, it's like without a doubt. If you look at the punch count, he had like 50 strikes to du Plessis barely breaking 30 or like just under 30 strikes. Du Plessis had the takedowns. They both cut each other bad. They both did damage to each other. I will say du Plessis was mainly the only fighter throughout the whole bout to actually change the rhythm of the fight, like bring it to a different part of the game, shooting those takedowns, just trying to make it uncomfortable for Shawn, winging those overhands, and some of them he actually landed and like cut open Shawn pretty bad. I'm not too mad at the decision. I do feel like Shawn was kind of robbed. I feel like even before the fight was going on, I felt like if Shawn made it close at all, if Dricus made it close at all, and Shawn couldn't get him out of there, then this was probably going to be Dricus' scorecard, because they're in Canada for one. Horrible judges. I'm going to save that for a rant video that I'm going to post like tomorrow, because I hope the UFC never goes back to Canada. But they had those horrible judges, and then on top of that, I don't think the UFC wants a fighter like Shawn Strickland to be the champion, just point blank period. He says too many ultra-based things that are really true and will probably hurt the company or hurt Endeavor, the ones that own the company, the higher-ups. But anyways, Shawn got robbed, in my opinion. And then on to the co-main event. Raquel Pennington defeated Myra Bueno Silva by a decision. It was a really boring fight, in all honesty. It was just really boring. And on top of that, it felt like Myra Bueno Silva just kind of gassed herself out really early on and was going for the same thing over and over, trying to get that neck crank, get that rear naked choke, really sloppily, going for submission before position, and she really fucked herself over with that. I'm not mad at it. I wanted Raquel Pennington to win. I said in my video, I have a gut feeling that Pennington will get it done, even though she's the underdog, and she'll see a championship finally. But I told myself that I was going to go against all my gut feelings this year, and of course, that's how that paid off. So good, congrats Pennington. That was a great win. And moving on to the feature fight, Neil Magny versus Mike Mallet. Dude, before this last fight, Mike Mallet was the last Canadian on the card. They were 0-6 prior to this. Mike Mallet won like 14 and a half minutes of this fight, and then in the last 30-second stretch, decided to just lose. Decided to just give Neil Magny a win. And on the flip side, Neil Magny was losing, getting dominated the whole fight, and then just decided to win. It was some of the craziest shit I've seen. It's going to be a contender for comeback of the year already. We've got one of them. And, I'm not mad at it. I love Neil Magny. He's a great fighder, especially after the shit he went through with Ian Gary. Like, he deserves it. Just wow for the Canadians. And then another Canadian on the card, Marc-Andre Barrera, lost to Chris Curtis in, a good fight. They were getting booed like crazy, and I kind of understand it, honestly. Even though they were throwing a lot, they were scrapping in the pocket the whole time. It felt like watching a spar. I think a lot of us, if you're like a conditioned fight fan, when you're watching two people go for the kill versus when you're watching two people kind of just sit there and, trade decent punches, not really trying to get each other out of there. That's what it felt like up until like kind of the very end of the fight. I had it for Chris Curtis, and I also predicted him, so he's one of the 4 fighters that I actually got correct, which is, thank God. If Chris Curtis lost another fight against a fighter like Marc-Andre Barrera, I don't think his career in the UFC would be able to flourish at any point. But right now, I think he can redeem himself, move up the rankings again, and become the action man once again. Then we have Movsar Evloev, and he took on Arnold Allen. This is tough. Another fight that I think it was the correct scorecard. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to go crazy with that. I think Movsar won. He did better damage on the feet in certain moments. I did kind of hold out hope that they would rob him and then give it to Arnold Allen, because I like Arnold way more. He was really going for it, and I appreciate that in fighters a lot. He was just kind of a little bit behind the pace. Movsar doesn't look that great, though, for an 18-0 fighter. Like, don't get me wrong, he's good, and he finds a way to really disrupt a lot of styles of featherweights, but I feel like he's shown some big weaknesses in his last couple of outings, and somebody's for sure taking that O. And if it ends up being that Ilya wins against Volk like I'm predicting, and then they have like an undefeated showdown at some point, I think Ilya would smoke Movsar. Just like as a little side rant here, I think Ilya would smoke Movsar if it came down to it. He doesn't seem that good, but good win for him. And then we have Brad Katona versus Garrett Armfield, which is just I thought Brad Katona really secured it with those takedowns, because he would hold him there for a while and land some pop shots, nothing too crazy, but he was still doing something with it. It wasn't just like baseless takedowns. I didn't really understand how Garrett Armfield, according to the commentary, out-damaged Brad Katona for the first 2 rounds and banked those rounds. I did not see that. I gave one of them to Brad Katona. I gave one of those rounds to Garrett Armfield. I believe it was the first one, if I'm not mistaken. I have to double check it. But the last 2 I gave to Brad Katona. I felt like his takedowns and pressure and mixing up good shots on the feet as well just did enough. And then the last fight that we're going to talk about tonight, Charles Jourdain taking on Shawn Woodson. Or maybe not the last fight. We might talk about one more. But Charles Jourdain taking on Shawn Woodson. This is a tough one. I went with Charles Jourdain. I thought him having the map bonus, being in Canada, and also just kind of being on a good roll lately would, play in Charles Jourdain's favor. Not to mention Shawn Woodson has looked good in his outings. He hasn't lost yet in the octagon, to my knowledge, but he hasn't looked like, unbeatable despite his clean record. And then that one draw to Luis Saldana. I really thought that Charles Jourdain would be able to mix it up, take it to the ground, but every time he tried to, it would just get stuffed. Shawn Woodson just looked cleaner on the feet. And I'm not mad at it. We need some more prospects, but it sucks because I really like Charles Jourdain. And then the last fight I'm going to talk about, actually, Johan Lentz taking on Sam Patterson. I picked Johan Lentz. I thought Sam Patterson was just not durable enough after he got smoked in his debut, and he ends up finding a rear naked choke really early into the first round. Again, another Canadian in Johan Lentz, just couldn't get it done. I'm so disappointed in myself for picking all of them. Usually the UFC sets up these fights for these people at the home crowd, at their home to do good for the crowd and, to make shit pop off, get good sales, whatnot, build stars, and all of them fumbled. And then on top of that, their judges suck. It's just, please never go back to Canada. Please, ever. Don't go back there. I'm sorry, Canadians. Hate on me all you want. And if you are going to hate, go do it over on my TikTok as well so I can get some traction over there. I could really use some more followers and some likes and whatnot. Subscribe to my channel if you like my content. We just kind of break shit down quick over here. I'm going to be back to breaking down the next fight night pretty soon. Have a good one, y'all.